I'd like to start really by asking you, Helene, just to sum up for us what has been most significant for you, what's really stood out for you, what's moved you.
Wow, this is intimidating. Everybody, waiting. um, I guess first and foremost, when I think back on Sunday evening when we started, and I made some comments about what were some of my expectations and hopes for this conference. And I guess I would say first and foremost, they have not only been met, they've been exceeded. I think James's last comment, I think there are a lot of people who came into this with a fair amount of skepticism. We all have a lot of important work to do, and I think those who are in country offices probably feel the pressures even more so because you're right there with the people who we're trying to serve and feeling it all the time. But I think across the organization, we're all in our own way stressed by the weight of the responsibilities that we hold. And so taking the time to, which is for most people at least about a week, to come away for something like this, is a lot. And it was a leap of faith, I think, on a lot of people's parts. But the fact that, to a person practically that I have talked to, everybody feels like that skepticism is gone and that there was something magical about coming together, having the right kinds of material, the right kinds of speakers to inspire, to share information, and that there are some new bonds being made. The first day I saw people sitting in their likely clusters. People were sitting with people that they knew. When I went around and went to dinner yesterday, I saw tables full of people who probably didn't know each other before, and people sharing with partners that they had not met before. So I think in terms of the expectations that I had about what this would mean for people coming together and what would come out of it, I think it has in many ways been magical. So first and foremost, I think that has been wonderful. For me personally, and I don't want to echo all the things that I think people have said much more eloquently than I can, I think it is been an incredible personal journey in the 3 days as well. I think, all of the things that people said about how people challenged us and moved us, and inspired us. And that was another thing that, I hope we would all get that sense of inspiration. And I think we do leave here. We all do our work because we're passionate, but I think we all get a little bit jaded and worn out. And so to have the kind of passion re-invoked that people like Stephen Lewis and Desmond Tutu and others brought to us, I think was incredibly important. And, I personally leave here recommitted, energized, and dedicated. But I also think there's some big themes that came out of it. And I think if I were to summarize, and again, a lot of people have summarized these things very well, so I'm just going to, in a very, very big picture way, for me, I think it is this notion of how we both do a better job of being a global organization. And so I think that leads into, I know what Robert will talk a little bit more about some of the issues of how do we be a more coherent organization. But how do we do the best that we can to be a global organization but have local impact and have what happens at the local level really impact what we do globally and really have that much better linkage throughout the system, remembering where we want to have our greatest impact. And again, I think the images that people evoked as poverty being chronic pain and other things really help us to think about what is it that we're really trying to have an impact on, but understanding that we can have a greater impact by truly being a global organization. And I think it takes a lot of the sorts of things that many people have said, being more coherent as an organization, coming up, being more clear about our priorities, having greater global distinctiveness, building greater partnerships, and doing some of the things that others talked about is that sense of leverage and being a judo player. I think it was a nice image to think about. And, I'm looking at Adam, who I have ad nauseum talked about this punching at our weight concept, where I think we don't use all that we have to go beyond just the programs we do, but use the programs we do to be a greater leverage to change policies and to have an impact on the things so that we're not just reaching the 70 million people that we talk about, that we reach with our programs, but we can have impact on the 1 billion or the 2 billion that we really want to have an impact on. So I think thinking about how we take who we are, leverage that, and be a catalytic force that is bigger than who we can be as an organization while we think about this global to local continuum are some of the things that I think about, and we can talk about later. What does that actually mean for us as an organization?
Thanks, Helene. And for you, Robert, what's ringing the loudest bell in your head at the moment?
Well, first, I want to, before answering that question, just thank CareUS, thank Helene for going forward with this meeting at a time when it was controversial to do this. And so one of my initial reactions, I mean, that took a bit of bravery and commitment, notwithstanding sunk costs and everything else. And one of my key impressions is that we needed this right now. We didn't, not a second later. And perhaps because we're entering a difficult time, perhaps particularly because of that. One of the, there are two places in care where you see our separateness most. One of them is at the country office level, because you see all the national members doing different things with different approaches, and you wonder why, as a country office, why can't we get it together? And at the Secretariat, you see this as well. You see us attend meetings, talk, collectively agree things, and then go off, and very quickly everyone gets caught up in their national context of pressures. And so my second impression was, here is a place where we, for this period of time, are one organization, one coherent organization. And I've never seen that before in all the time I've been at CARE. I think the passion is also, obviously, everyone's mentioned the passion. And for me, there were some very special moments, including there was one moment in which one of our staff members had a chat with Desmond Tutu that was a very remarkable moment. And for me, amazing.